Good morning and welcome to my presentation on improving early warning systems for extreme weather in South Africa. The goal of my presentation is to demonstrate how the World Climate Research Programme, WCRP, Regional Information for Society, RIFS project, transdisciplinary approaches and transformative research may be employed to enhance early warning systems in South Africa. I also highlight the need to prioritize early warning systems in nationally determined contributions, National Adaptation Plans, and provide examples of extreme weather events and critical areas for intervention. The number of people that have died from droughts, floods, and storms was 15 times higher in highly vulnerable regions of the planet compared to low vulnerable regions between 2010 and 2020. 2 million people died from weather, climate, and water-related hazards over the period 1970 to 2021, with 90% being from developing countries. Fortunately, mortality rates decreased due to the implementation of early warning systems. This illustrates civil society's dependence on reliable climate information and the importance of prioritizing early warning systems in NDCs and National Adaptation Plans. Africa is highly vulnerable to the effects of climate change, projected to become hotter and drier, with key societal risks to food and water security and an increase in heat-related mortality. The continent experienced numerous extreme weather events last year in 2022. Sadly, only 40% of the continent is covered by early warning systems. South Africa's extreme weather events often make international headlines, with cyclones Idai and Freddie affecting multiple provinces, extreme precipitation events leading to deadly floods in KwaZulu-Natal province, and the 3-year-long drought in Cape Town. Numerous heat waves and thunderstorms affecting multiple provinces. South Africa's economic losses of $3.9 billion due to drought and flood over the period 1970 to 2021 provide ample motivation for enhancing early warning systems in the country. Early warning systems provide more than a 10-fold return on investment. With just 24 hours notice of an impending hazard, damage can be reduced by 30%. The World Meteorological Organization launched the Early Warning System Action Plan for Africa at the Africa Climate Summit in September this year. This is a comprehensive plan to increase the coverage of the continent with early warning systems. The Global Early Warning System Initiative for All and the Early Warning System Action Plan for Africa are both based on these 4 pillars. I will return to the individual pillars for the details on how to improve South Africa's early warning system using research approaches. Note that this is a multi-hazard early warning system, meaning that it targets multiple hazards at the same time, and it is people-centered approach. Has a people-centered approach. The World Climate Research Programme, RIFS project, aims to strengthen the science, policy, practice interface to produce policy-relevant information for real-world societal problems, often termed wicked problems. This type of research is essential to strengthen South Africa's early warning systems. The RIFS program has 4 codependent clusters that address climate projection, climate predictions, climate extremes, and communication and societal engagement. Because these clusters are codependent, they draw on knowledge from each other to produce new knowledge. These 4 clusters are not to be confused with the 4 pillars of the early warning systems that I introduced previously. The transdisciplinary approach is about co-producing knowledge with various stakeholders, placing emphasis on mutual learning between the stakeholders. Transformative research addresses real-world societal problems and seeks to catalyze change on the ground where it matters the most, to produce pathways to new frontiers. Returning to the individual pillars of the early warning system, Pillar 1 addresses disaster risk knowledge. By increasing our understanding of climate risks for this region, vulnerabilities can be better managed. All 4 clusters of WCRP's RIFS program are relevant to this pillar, with clusters 1 and 2 placing emphasis on the need to characterize extreme events. For Pillar 2, detection, observations, monitoring, analysis, and forecasting of hazards, researchers can address the gaps in observational coverage. This pillar emphasizes building capacity by training stakeholders in advanced forecasting techniques and the dissemination of climate information. For warning dissemination and communication, digital technologies need to be leveraged to communicate warnings of hazards to all vulnerable communities timelessly. This is consistent with the science goals of WCRP's RIFS Cluster 4. The last pillar of the early warning system is to support active participation of local communities by educating them about the risks they face, training them on response and evacuation procedures, as well as integrating the indigenous knowledge. This addresses WCRP's RIFS Cluster 4, communication and societal engagement, as well as transdisciplinary approaches. This diagram depicts an effective end-to-end early warning system for floods in the Philippines, consisting of the 4 pillars that I have already discussed. Now I will provide examples of the most prevalent extreme weather events and the critical areas for intervention. Key areas for floods and droughts in South Africa are to improve hydrometeorological models, to increase the lead time for more time to prepare for the impending disasters, to characterize the extreme events by quantifying them, to enhance communication and societal engagement through transdisciplinary approaches. Sorry about that. By strengthening our institutional frameworks, stronger climate policies, and address the major challenges of implementing these policies. And lastly, there are several international tools to improve our early warning systems for floods, such as the Artificial Intelligent Flood Hub. With El Nino 2023 upon us and South Africa already having experienced multiple heat waves this spring, the urgency for early warning systems has never been more pressing. According to the IPCC AR6 Working Group 2 report, we urgently need a heat health action plan. The Department of Health has a national heat health guideline, and I believe that there is a National Adaptation Plan being prepared. However, we already know who the vulnerable communities are. So using WCRP's RIFS Cluster 4, we can enhance the dissemination of warnings to target key institutions and advance the dialogue with stakeholders, that is, engage with leaders of the target institutions to implement the restrictions we need to place during heat waves. An examination of South Africa's climate change bill, just transition framework, and NDCs, nationally determined contributions, reveals that early warning systems are mentioned, but there are no clear goals on how these will be implemented, enhanced, or achieved. Addressing this gap will strengthen the institutional frameworks. In conclusion, South Africa must prioritize early warning systems in national adaptation plans and nationally determined contributions. Transdisciplinary and transformative research must be leveraged to catalyze change on the ground where it matters the most. We must strengthen the science policy practice interface and generate effective region-specific policies and find solutions to implement the policies. The WCRP's RIFS program can be used to generate climate information with tangible societal benefits. Early warning systems are a vital disaster risk reduction tool for saving lives, and it is a fundamental human right. These are my references, and I thank you for your time and your attention.